All right, welcome to week 8. This is your moment. This is your shot. This is your opportunity to be able to change your life forever. Being able to make that transformation to help you have a breakthrough year. And so in this week's module, we're going to go over another foundational principle. Now, I know you guys are looking at me, looking a little bit different in this week's video, recording a little bit later, and I've got on some blue blocker glasses. This is to help you take out all of the blue light that emits from your overhead lights, your technology, phones, TVs, computers, tablets. A lot of us understand that we weren't wired to be receiving light signals to our eyes at night, which is why it becomes harder to sleep. And so a lot of times when I'm recording things later at night, I'll have on my blue blockers just to keep myself in tune more with my natural daytime patterns and nighttime patterns, and that just give me more sleep. A lot of times when I wear this, I get deeper sleep at night. So if you want to check it out and improve your health, feel free to do so. Maybe I'll put up a link to let you grab a pair. But in today's video, this is about time and the maintenance of systems. Okay, so as we talked in last week's video, we were talking a lot about you being able to have your own personalized system, how your system becomes the asset. You're no longer the asset because there's only so much that you can personally do within a 24-hour time span. Today's video is going to be a much deeper understanding on time. Time is the most precious resource that we have in this life if you think about it. You got time. You've got money, right? You've got these different assets that are available to you in this life, resources to pull from to help you get to a certain place of success. But when you think about time, it can't be bought back. Time can't be reversed. You're never going to see this day again. And so it's very important that you get an extremely deep, not just surface level, not just the little cliche things that people say about time, or, what your mom told you about time, what your dad told you, what your elementary school teacher told you about time. It is very important that you get a very advanced approach to understanding the concept of time in order for you to be able to effectively make the most of your life. This is time management on steroids, okay? So we're going to go over a few different topics, and then we're going to talk about how you can have a system in your life that can either be improving your life, or how systems can actually degrade your life if you go against the advanced rules and principles of time. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. So the first thing that you need to be able to understand is this. And, you've had different philosophers throughout the years that have quoted different things. But if you were to read the writings of Seneca, one of the things that he had said during his time was, when it comes to the behaviors of most people, when it comes to how they manage their time or how they view time, right? Most people in the world know that they don't have as much money as they would want. Most people in the world, they know that they don't have as much time as they want. How often do we complain about how not having enough time? There's just never enough hours in a day. There's not enough time in the world to get things done. We're always finding ourselves pressed for time. We're always finding ourselves playing catch up. But yet, think about how many people in the world today have limited amounts of time to be able to do the things that they've really been called to do in their life. But when it comes to the spending, right? The spending of how they spend their time, they spend their time as though they have all the time in the world, right? They have phone conversations, never keeping track of the time, hours on end, Facebook, TV, all these distractions. Nothing deliberate that you're doing that's actually helping take your life to the next level, that's helping to move you to a more elevated point, you find yourself waking up and just kind of going wherever the wind blows in terms of whatever is catching your attention, right? So all of us know that there may come a day where we may die. All of us know that there may come a day where we will no longer be on this earth. All of us understand that we are not here as immortals. But yet we spend our time as though we have all the time in the world. Then when it comes to our money, right? All of us say, well, man, if I had enough money to do this, then I would do that. Man, it's like I'm living check to check. Very often do we find how pained and how pressed we are when it comes to being able to have money and not having enough money and enough resource, right, of finances. But how often do we spend money as though we have all the money in the world, right? And maybe even if it's not ourselves, our family members, our friends, the people that influence us in our immediate circle. We complain as though we don't have enough money, and yet we don't operate on a daily budget. Yet we couldn't tell you down to the cent, this is how much money I'm spending on this. This is how much money I'm spending on gas. This is how much money I'm spending, on food every month. We just let the money fall wherever it falls, as though we had all the money in the world, right? So what one of the ancient philosophers, Seneca, had said regarding this subject of time is that when it comes to time, most people feel as though when it comes to time, right, they have fears in life and they come very in touch with their mortality. So you think about whatever fears that you have, and you're quick to say, well, this is what I can't do. This is what I don't have time to do. This is what I am unable to do. We come very close with our own mortality and our own limitations whenever we think about our fears. But then when we start to think about the subject of time itself, we just act like there's all the opportunity in the world, right? There's all the time in the world to get things done. So you can put off whatever is most important until tomorrow, even though we're never promised tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's not promised to any man. We don't know when our last day or when our last hour on this earth shall be. But yet and still somehow, when it comes to the subject of time, even though we know that it's scarce, even though we know it's one of our most precious resources on this earth that we will ever have, no matter how wise we become, no matter how wealthy we become, no matter what house that we live in, we know that time will always be among the top 3 resources that we will ever have in this life. And yet and still we will spend time irresponsibly as though we had all the time in the world. And when you look at the difference between successful people, people that have lived lives of high impact, created world-class performance, right? Left a legendary mark on this world. Every single last one of them had a very strong emphasis on time. In fact, even if you were to look at some of the great world leaders, even Jesus Christ, prime example. If you were to look at the works of many scholars would tell you that Jesus Christ only lived until age 33. But in the impact that he made on the world, being known for millenniums after his own existence, right? Time is charted after his existence. When you think about the impact that he had within 33 years' time, it obviously was a lot more profound than that of most people that are on the planet, right? So you got to think about how to be able to rethink the concept of time. So you don't want to just live in time. You don't want to just wake up and, I know what time it is. It's 8 a.m. You don't want to just exist in time. You want to be able to actually understand time so that way you can leverage time and use it to get in front of it rather than stay behind it, right? Because as they say in society, time waits for no man, okay? So remember that when it comes to our fears, we act as though that we're mortal. And when it comes to how we view the subject of time, we act as though we're immortals. It's time to start flipping things around. Maybe when it comes to some of our fears, let us not get so constricted. And when it comes to how we spend our time, maybe it would be best if we were operating on a much more organized routine, right? Knowing how scarce that time is. And isn't it funny that a lot of times when it comes to how we view how much we can get done in a certain allotment of time, a lot of times we tend to overestimate how much we could get done in a day, but we tend to underestimate how much we could get done in a lifetime, right? So think about how the brain processes the perspectives of time in the short and long term. In the short term, you feel like you get 1,000,001 things done. How many times have you ever approached a day and you've had a to-do list, and this to-do list could have had a bunch of different things on it, and you looked at the to-do list and you was like, yeah, I'm gonna knock that out today, no problem. And then the day comes and you work your hardest, and despite your best efforts to get things done, you're only able to accomplish half of what you set out to accomplish, right? Most of us in the time span of any given day, if we're ambitious, we tend to overestimate at a 24-hour scale. But then when it comes to our entire lifetime, what we will leave in the world, what our legacy will be, man, we tend to shoot pretty low. And that's the reason why a lot of times, as they said in Troy, where the young boy asked about, if Troy would fight Brad Pitt in the movie would fight the Thessalonian. And Brad Pitt responded when the young child was wondering why he was doing it without fear. The young child said, well, if it was me, I wouldn't have fought the Thessalonian. I'd be too scared. And Brad Pitt said, that's the reason why no one will remember you, right? That's the reason why nobody will remember your name after you're gone. And so thinking about how we tend to view our entire lifespan, fitting more in a life, because this is all you have, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in today's lesson. How do we get better perspective on how to view a day, and then how to be able to maximize our perspective and our impact on how to make the most of a lifetime, okay? So the first thing that you need to be able to understand is this, and this is a very fundamental time management principle. Don't spend major time on minor things, right? Don't major in the minors. There's so many people every single day that will take something that would be a seemingly minute task, seemingly small decision, something of little to no value or impact, especially in the long term of life, and they will spend an excessive amount of time just thinking and worrying through that process. Like, have you ever spent a long amount of time in a day thinking about what you were going to wear, thinking about what you were going to eat, thinking about just some random thing that you were worried about that you can't even recall what you were so stressed about a week after you were done stressing, right? We tend to, by default, many times, allow our minds to just kind of sidetrack its way into so many small, minor things. But then when it comes to the majors, we complain about how we don't have enough time. So we want to start a business, but we feel as though we don't have enough time to start a business, right? You're working at a 9-to-5 job. You got family to take care of. You're commuting. You got to be able to have some type of a life outside of just business. You're involved in a church. You're doing this. You're doing that. And you're wondering how you're going to fit this into your day. Well, the one thing that you want to think about is, how do I stop majoring in minor things? So think about all of the minor things in your life right now. How much time are you giving to it? Are you keeping simple things simple? Are you spending 5 hours on something so small and so minuscule, this should only get 5 minutes of your time, right? Because people that are successful, they understand which activities are 5 minute activities and which activities are 5 hour activities. In fact, many successful people understand how this same principle applies to even operating and interacting with people. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So for me, myself personally, I've got this breakdown, how I break people into 3 categories. I've got 5-minute friends, I've got 5-hour friends, and then I've got 5-day friends. So you got these 5-minute friends, right? And these might be people that you know, you've hung out with them, you're cool with them, you see them. But for the most part, the conversation is best when it's just kept in passing. You understand in all of the modules and videos that we've gone through up to this point that when you start to let anyone into your life at a very close level, they begin to infuse your way of thinking, which at times could be extremely detrimental if you're not guarded about the caliber of people that you bring into your circle. So in this case, you got to be able to have 5-minute friends. You got to be able to say, you know what? The longest that this conversation goes is 5 minutes, and then I move on. But then you got 5-hour friends, right? These are the people that, you take out to lunch. These are the people that you spend a decent part of your day with. This is the people that you take the time to learn from, mentors that you gather around yourself to help you actually enhance your quality of living. Then you got 5-day people, right? These are people, you can go to the moon with these people and back. When it comes to how much time you want to spend with this person, as much time as you're able to afford. Because by having these people close to you, these are going to be people that are going to be constantly working towards your best interest for you to have the best life possible, right? And in an ideal fashion, these are the best of mentors. These are your spouse, maybe family members, those that are extremely close to you, that you spend a lot of time with, and it gives you a lot of happiness in your life. But the problem is, many of us have not organized in such a structure, and we will spend time 5 hours with 5-minute people. Or there'll be certain people that we need to be spending 5 days around to learn the wisdom of the ages, to figure out how to get our lives in order, but yet we will not speak with them beyond the point of 5 minutes for whatever reason. You've got to be able to understand at a very deep level of time that you've got to be able to have your time categories, right? So majoring in minor things is not simply just about the task that you dedicate yourself to. It's also around the environments that you put yourself in, right? As they say in the ancient scripture, if you see a man that's diligent in his business, if he's skilled in what he does, he's going to spend his time amongst kings, right? He's going to invest himself around people that are playing at the top level. That's going to be his default because his level of performance is so high that just by human nature, he or she is going to find himself inclined to be playing and operating on that level wherever he goes. It says, if you see a man that's diligent in his business, he's going to stand amongst kings, but he shall not walk amongst mean men, right? People that don't have that much going on, people that are not interested in their growth, people that are not interested in making the most of their life, people that are interested in achieving success in whatever success means to them or to you. Doesn't have to be monetary, right? But you're going to find distinctions among successful people versus unsuccessful people. And one of the main ways that you're going to find those distinctions is how those two sets of people manage their time, right? Successful people don't major in minor things. They identify what is minor in their life and they spend as little amount of time possible. Then they identify the things that are major in their life. Major wins, major environments, right? Major people to be around, and they spend all of their time in that area. They double down in that area. They look for more time in that category. So that's one thing that you want to think about as well. Next, you want to ask yourself this question. In the 24 hours that you spend your day, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right? Then you got 12 months in a year. How are you spending your time? Are you spending your time existing, or are you spending your time living, right? Are you spending your time actually living? Living in this context means you have a purpose, you have a calling, you have things that you want to do. This is what freedom looks like in your eyes. And you are investing as many hours as you possibly can towards your freedom, up until the point where you get it as much as one could possibly get it in this life, right? That would be considered living. So you actually living out your life's calling, your life's mission, right? That would be living. You're doing the thing that you want to do. You're around the people that you want to be around. You're building up the community that you want to be able to have. You're living the life that you want to live. That's how one would define living in this context. Are you spending your time living? Or are you spending your time existing? Right? So existing would be, you got 24 hours in a day, but you are finding yourself constricted doing and spending so many hours doing all of these things that you don't even really want to do. You find yourself at a job that you really don't want to be at, but you find yourself dedicating 40 plus hours every single week, being there because the justification for doing that is, well, I got to have some way to keep a roof over my head. I got to have some way to be able to pay the bills. I've got to be able to get by. And so therefore, I have to allocate a large portion of my life just simply existing in hopes that one day I'm going to live, right? A lot of people in life, they'll live a life where they're spending their time doing things that they don't want to do. They'll spend their life not really making the money that they want to make. It's just an existence. They're living out a narrative that they themselves don't enjoy, but for whatever reason, they've bought into it because that's what they see everybody else doing, right? That reminds me of one of the famous quotes. I think it was Thoreau that said, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation," right? What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. Most people spend their lives quietly miserable because they know they're doing things that they don't want to do in their life. But they justify it and say, oh, well, I'll call this TGIF syndrome, right? Why do most people say, thank God it's Friday? Thank God it's the weekend. Because they're so miserable from Monday to Thursday that they can't wait until Friday arrives so that way they can rush into that destination, right? Even when you think about this American lifestyle, out of 52 weeks in a year, most jobs only give you 2 weeks worth of vacation. So if you don't like your job, you're signing up to stay somewhere 50 consecutive weeks in a year with no vacation, right? Is that a formula for happiness, or is that a formula for misery? You're going to work 50 weeks in a year just so that way you can actually enjoy your life for 2 weeks in a year. You're going to work 5 days a week so that way you can only be happy or satisfied with 2 days out of the week, or 3 at best. You're getting the short end of the stick on your own life's happiness and satisfaction, because you're trading in all of the time that you could be spending living by simply existing. And you're spending voluntarily so many hours existing in hopes that somehow one day magically you will live. And that's the reason why, if you were to watch one of my favorite movies, The Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne, he said, you better either get busy living or you better get busy dying. And for many of us, and we've seen this in our family members, our friends, going through life just feeling so unhappy. And one of the biggest points of unhappiness that many of us have received in our lives is this deep sense of dissatisfaction because we've given most of our time to doing things that only allow us to exist rather than thrive and live the life that we want to live. So my encouragement to you in this particular video, as we get a deeper understanding of time, is that the objective of time and your time management is not to do a million things under the sun. It's so in the time that you do have in this life, you're spending as much time of it as possible doing the things that you want to do in your life, doing something that makes you feel like you're actually walking in your life's purpose. You're living rather than existing, right? Instead of just waking up one day like a robot, just living out some narrative that society has told you to live out that you don't even care about, you're doing something that satisfies a deep burning why inside of yourself. Okay? So that's one of the next big things. Understanding, am I living or am I existing? Okay? So here's a question. How much, right? If you were to think about your time and how you value your time, how much would you put a price tag or a value on every hour of the day? So I'll give you a prime example, right? Me, myself, personally, I like to value my time at $1,000 per hour. I know that my time on this life is not forever. And so it is very important to me that I get the most out of my day. And even, getting the most out of your day is not always doing stuff in business and doing stuff for this and doing stuff for that. Getting the most out of the day is whatever makes the most sense for you in your life at that particular time. So whether that means rest and recovery, whether that means fellowship, whether that means studying, whether that means working, right? Operating in whatever works best for you. Getting to that level, how much do you value your time per hour? For me, in valuing my $1,000 per hour, it becomes a filtering system on things that I don't feel is worth my time, right? So again, going back to the subject of using the telephone. Many of you guys have probably heard this before. Maybe you've heard me say it on a different mentor call that we've been on together. My phone doesn't even go off. When somebody calls me, I wouldn't know it. Unless you're on a list of about 10 people out of the thousands of people that I do know. Unless you're on this list of 10 people, when you call, my phone's not going to go off. And that's not to be pretentious in character to say, I'm just going to block this person, I'm going to block that person, I'm going to block that person. No. It's the acknowledgement that if I only have 24 hours in a day and I am working my way towards constantly striving towards mastery, constantly growing spiritually, constantly growing professionally, constantly growing financially, to whom much is given, much is required. I'm going to be having more contacts that are going to want to get in contact with me. I'm going to be having more responsibilities that I need to fulfill within certain deadlines. And if I am not responsible about how I am spending my time every single day, there's no way that I will be able to juggle my various responsibilities, whether it be in the church, whether it be in my business, whether it be in my marriage, whether it be as a real estate investor, whether it be as an author. If I don't find a way to be able to keep my time very restricted, I'm going to open Pandora's box to the point where everything will begin to go under, right? And so what you got to start thinking about is, if you value your time, right, at a certain amount per hour, how would that change how you spend a day? So I'll give you a prime example. You know, I think one of the greatest phenomenons, at least in America, is how just over the top people will get about Black Friday, right? For those of you guys that have heard about Black Fridays, the day after Thanksgiving, and you'll always see every single year these news stories about people that had camped out from the night before to be the first ones to go through the door, to be able to go and buy an appliance or some electronic gadget that was a couple $100s. And when you think about that, right, the psyche of people, and this is not in any type of derogatory way towards other people. This is not to think that we're any better of a person because we don't do what they do. It's just having a fundamental understanding of time and the habits and the mindset that leads to success. So if you were to look at somebody, right, maybe they camped out for 12 hours to buy a $300 TV, right? How much are they telling you about how they value their time? If you see a person and they are standing in a 2-hour line to be able to get like a free hamburger, right? Free shake, free coupon for this or free that. You're literally going to spend 2 hours of your life that you're never going to get back. You're never going to see this time again. You're going to spend this 2 hours on something that costs $5 at best, $10 at best, right? That goes to show that in the psyche of that type of a person, right, this is not someone who truly values their time. Because if they truly valued their time, there's no way that they would put themselves in that environment where their time is just being wasted away, given that your time is so scarce, right? If you value yourself, right? And this is where knowing your own self-worth comes into play. This is where this gets really important. You cannot look to your boss to tell you how much you're worth, right? Because they don't really care about you on a type of a level. Nobody's going to care about you more than you. So you got to define how much is your time worth. Even the people that are around you, they may love you, they may care about you, they may wish you well. But no one is going to value your mortality, your scarce time, by the hour more than you. So how much is your time worth per hour? And what things are you doing right now that shows that you're not actually giving honor to that? Okay, so I'm gonna give you a prime example. I was at a mastermind one time, one of my mentors' house, and there were a lot of different guys there, a lot of entrepreneurs, folks that were making a lot of money hand over fist. $20,000 mastermind costs. Everybody's having to pay $25,000 to get in, right? So these are people that have well-established businesses. They're making really good money. And there was a set of twins, partners in business, fitness guys, and they offered up a complaint that they were not making as much money as they would have liked to make, because at these different masterminds, people have different types of problems. Sometimes people won't have money issues. They'll have staff issues, getting the right people into the company. Some people won't have staff issues. Some people will have finding that next big idea, right? That's going to help them get to the next level. These guys, they had a financial problem. They weren't actually hitting the financial quotas that they had set out to hit as a part of their goals. And, our mentors are around and they're having this discussion with them about how they're spending their time. And so one mentor asked a question. He says, well, what do you do in terms of your chores? And they're talking about, I'm doing the dishes. I'm, doing laundry, doing this, doing that, all these types of things. And he just happens to ask, well, how many hours a day How many hours a week do you find yourself consumed in those activities? So the guys start talking, and it just starts turning into hours and hours every single week, just on the most menial of chores. And, basically it boiled down to our mentor having to explain that the reason why you're not achieving the certain income goal is because of the fact that you're investing so much time in these menial activities. Even though you may feel like, wow, doing my laundry, that's such a life necessity. Doing my dishes is such a life necessity. But are we not living in a world where you can very easily, just through a click of a button on your computer, you could hire somebody out to actually do many of these lower level tasks for an extremely low price, $10 or less. So if you value your time at even $100 an hour in your own personal self-worth, how much you value yourself, why would you spend so much time doing an $8 task every single hour when you're worth $100 an hour? That means that every hour on the hour, you're losing $90 plus, not gaining anything. Your life is just constantly going down in the red by $90 an hour because of the fact that you're majoring in minor things, right? So when you come to this fundamental understanding that you got to take things that are worth your time and maximize it throughout the course of your day, that's when you get closer to actually living out your purpose, right? Don't think about the little cost of, who has money to just be able to pay a person to be able to wash the dishes? Well, do you find time or do you find money to be able to spend $20 on other things when you could spend the same $20 hiring a person to do 2 hours worth of housework for you? I think it would be worth the investment. Could you benefit right now from having 2 additional hours in a week, right? To be able to work on your next big thing. You think about how many weeks there are in a year, 52 weeks in a year. Could you benefit from 100 extra hours per year just by getting rid of just 2 hours of minutia one time a week, right? That's 100 extra hours. And here you are valuing your time at $100 an hour. Would that be beneficial to you? The answer is yes, absolutely. But yet you're losing all of that time and all of that money majoring in minor things. All why? Because the person next door to you does it? Because your mom does it? Because your dad does it? Because nobody in your current circle of people see this as normal? So normal to you becomes just doing low-level tasks, right? Do you really think that people that are playing at the highest levels, world-class performers, do you really think that they're sitting down doing all these lower-level tasks? Or have they devised strategies to have other people do them? If you ever want to get to a higher level of success, I would suggest that you start doing and putting these things into play, right? Because it always kind of goes back to that discussion of, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do I start getting the money and then I start hiring people to do this and do that and do that and do that? Or do I start hiring people to start doing stuff and then that positions me to actually have the time and the mental energy to go out and make the money, right? Something to think about, very important when it comes to the subject of time, okay? Here's another thing. Tomorrow is promised to nobody, and we all know that. But we spend so much time talking about our plans for tomorrow. Like how they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Knowing that tomorrow is promised to nobody, the only wise decision for you to make is maximizing operating right now. There really is no tomorrow, right? And you might be saying, well, Uzziah, doesn't this go against you talking about being a forward thinker and a long-term thinker and a this and a that? No, this is something totally different. It's nothing wrong with having an idea of where you want to be at 5, 10, 15 years down the line. But here's the thing that you got to consider. The longer and further away that time interval is, the less you can control. You may not be able to control exactly what your life is going to look like 10 years from now. Who's to say what's going to happen to you tomorrow? You can't control what's going to happen in the next, 5 hours. So who's to say what life is going to look like in 5 years from now? If you're breathing and if you're able to do something right now, guess what is the only opportunity that you have to be able to make real change and real impact? It's what you're doing right now, this very moment. So you got to be able to change the way that you think about viewing time. You have to change your mental perceptions of time. The more further and distance out things become, the less of control that you have. The only thing that you could really control, if anything, is this very second. So that's why you got to be able to operate right now, right? Next thing. This is so important, so important. And this is one of those principles where you wish that you would have learned this a lot earlier in life because it's so foundational and so key, but yet most people never learn this until they get much older, and then it's, in some cases, it's too late, right? Time takes you closer to deterioration. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Time takes you closer to deterioration. So what does that mean? You look at anything in life, right? And this goes into the subject of systems. You look at any system. A fundamental time rule is that over times, systems will begin to deteriorate, right? So let's say this house, this property that I'm in right now. If I don't perform the necessary maintenance, if I don't perform the necessary upkeep, if I don't perform the necessary repairs and renovations, then what's going to happen to this property? Well, in time it's going to start depreciating. In time it's going to start rusting. In time it's going to start breaking down. And the quality of this house 2 years from now will not be where it is today if I am not performing the necessary tasks to keep my house intact, right? So time becomes an inevitable movement towards deterioration, right? The more time ticks, the more stuff is deteriorating. Your job is to place focus on the things that are the most important as not to allow deterioration to take place. So take, for example, your marriage, right? Your marriage can deteriorate in time if you are not focused on staying on the same page with your spouse. Then what could happen? You guys can start going in two completely different pages. And that same fire that you had when you first got married, it may not be there today. That's time deteriorating your life. Time will deteriorate your business. Okay, look at Blockbuster. At one point in time, right, VHS tapes was the end thing. Time started to deteriorate Blockbuster. VHS was no longer the end thing, and they did not have a viable solution to stay the course and overcome, right? When time changed, they were not in the right position to adapt because they were not focusing on what was going to happen at a later time. So if you don't focus on what's going to happen at a later time, I can guarantee you that something in your life is going to deteriorate. If you're not laser focused on your health, guess what? Your health ain't going to fix itself. You're either moving forward in life or you're going backward. And moving forward is with focus. You're only going to go backward if you're not giving any focus to it at all. So you just wake up any given day without any diet plan, without any exercise plan, without any sleep plan, without any monitoring of your lifestyle habits that influences your health. Then guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to find your health deteriorating, and you're going to accelerate your aging, life complications, all types of things. Why is this so important, especially in a business? Because there's a lot of mythical information in the world today that you could have this fully automated online business where all you got to do is come up with a concept, put a little bit of information on paper, and then just go out and hire everybody else to do everything for you, right? And a lot of that stems from People being over romanticized into the 4-hour work week, right? Think about this. Does Tim Ferriss himself typically only work for 4 hours in a week? Would he have been able to ever get his legacy if he only worked for 4 hours a week? That's one of the things that you got to think about as well. That might be for another lesson. A lot of people are good at telling you what to do, but are they living it out themselves? Right? So as you think about, okay, well, I'm just going to have this 4-hour work week where I'm just going to be traveling and jet setting and going all over the world and doing all of these great things. And I'm just going to be hiring out people to just run my business completely. Is the business ever going to be as good as it would be if you actually put focus to it? Right? You really think that if you just hire some random person in India to just start running your business from top to bottom, do you really think that it's going to look as good as you would want it to look if you were in control of it? They got the saying, if you want to get things done, you better know how to do it yourself. And so one of the reasons why you just being outsourced crazy, right? It's not to say that certain functions within a business couldn't be outsourced here and there, but even still, it still needs to be managed, right? It's not to say that certain functions within a business couldn't be outsourced, but the question is, if you just outsource everything, is that actually going with this law that we have on time, right? That where your progress goes where your focus is at. Focus moves you forward. Looking away from something pulls you back, right? So is this whole outsource theory and myth, Hollywood myth that's being peddled all over the internet that people are buying into and then wondering why their business never gets off the ground, you're just thinking they're just going to just hire just these subpar minimum wage workers overseas somewhere to run your entire business for you. Do you really think that that's going to be a viable solution to help you make real money in this life if one of the universal laws of life is that time and the lack of attention that one displays in time only brings an inevitable deterioration, right? If you outsource your marriage to somebody, what's going to happen? Is it going to make your marriage better or is it going to make your marriage worse, right? You say, well, you know what? I only want to deal with my wife 4 hours in a week. I'm just going to outsource somebody else to spend time with her, all of these other hours of the day. Is that going to make your life better or is that going to make it worse? How about your health? If you outsource going to the gym, right? Can somebody pick up the weights and do the dumbbells and lifts and for you? No, right? This is the understanding that you have to have about time. Time is automatically geared towards deteriorating the things that we want to work on in our life. And the only way that you can truly offset that is to focus on the things that are close to you and constantly keep it managed. Constantly keep it under your lock and key. The things that you take your attention away from is going to be on a decline. And I can guarantee you in any facet of life, that's going to hold true. So don't think that just by you having a system, right? Going back to our discussion from last week's call, don't think that by you just having a system, that system is just going to be just so fully automated that you could just, head to the beach, be on a vacation, 365, and everything is just going to happen just automatically. Money's just going to be made automatically, and just success is just going to grow and compound on itself automatically, right? Even in a system, you still have to invest in that system. You still have to focus on that system. Just like you have a car, right? A car is a system. But if you're not paying attention to how much gas is in that car is going to stop. If you're not paying attention to how much oil is in that car is going to break down on you. If you don't service the car, if you don't place the proper amount of effort and maintenance and energy into the system will inevitably fail you, right? The system, it will be a servant to you, but you still have to invest in it, Okay, there is no there's no utopia life. There's no magic unicorn. Okay, so as we close this out, there's only a couple things that I want to say. One, plan the day before the day plans you. Don't wake up and just think that, oh, well, I'm just going to figure out the day as it comes. I often talk about how when I'm going through a day, the first 2 hours of the day, I don't even have my telephone on. Why? Because when most people are waking up and the first thing that they do is they check their phone, whether they know it or not, subconsciously they're programming their brain to operate reactively rather than proactively in terms of conquering their day. They're looking at whoever has text messaged them, any calls that have been missed, any social media, any this, email, this and that. And when you program your mind to operate in a reactive state, you're never going to be ahead of the pack with the proactive people. Only the proactive people in life are going to be leading the pack. And so you've got to be able to have the diligence to plan the day before the day plans you, right? So before the day even begins, have your day planned out. Know what you're going to be doing and when. Don't just wait for the day to just come and you just go wherever the wind blows, right? Because do people who just go wherever the wind blows get all of what they want out of life? Or do they get to the end of their life in a state of regret? If you don't want that to be you, don't do what they do. So let's talk about your assignment right now, okay? This video has been a little bit longer because it's extremely foundational, as have been all these other videos, to just give you as much value as you could possibly get to be able to have a breakthrough year. I'm telling you, there are 52 weeks of videos that we have planned for this. And even if you get down the first 10, I guarantee you won't just have a breakthrough year. You'll have a breakthrough life if you constantly apply what you're learning in these lessons, okay? I want you to write out all the ways that you've been wasting your time, right? Not investing your time, because an investment is something that's supposed to be making you money long term, something that's supposed to be growing you long term, right? How have you been wasting your time? What are all the ways? How have you been majoring in minor things? And what are you going to be doing now to start majoring in major things? What things are you going to start scaling back on to make time for the things that actually matter, to make time for the things that get you ahead, to make time for the things that will make you, your family, and your community successful, okay? Start outlining that and start devising a plan. So that way, starting today, instead of just simply existing and getting by in life, you could go to thriving in life, actually living, not to get by, not to survive, but to thrive. Okay, not to just follow somebody else's script in life, but to follow what it is that you need to do if you want to have a world-class life. All right, time is short. Make the most of it. See you guys on the next video. Take care.